Welcome to Creative Human, where we have deep conversations with creative people on how to ascend and how to adapt in a changing world. I'm your host, Tom Martin. Today's guest, very excited to have him on, Jack Mayo. He's the owner of Jack Mayo Films, which offers commercial video production, live streaming, and full crew for sports, live events, and commercials in Dallas, Texas, and beyond. Jack, aside from being a very creative person and doing great creative work as a DP, as a director, is a business owner and a darn good one at that. He has a great logistical mind as much as he has a good creative mind. And so for someone like Jack, in the face of new AI tools that can help business owners, not to mention in the face of threats to a lot of folks that he likes to work with as a traditionalist, I was really curious for his perspective on where we're headed and how he got to where he is at such a relatively young age, being a trusted business owner with awesome high-level clients. Jack is not working in the same sports space that others are, aside from his work for SMU, but I do think anyone in the sports space or beyond can really appreciate his perspective. Jack Mayo, nice to see you, my friend. You're the owner of Jack Mayo Films, based in Dallas, Texas. You have been at this for a long time, despite not being all that old. And I say this as someone who's in my mid-30s now. It's a pleasure to have you on. And as always, we start with the same first question we ask everybody on this show, this slow developing but soon to be big time show that you were going to help make even bigger. Jack, what makes you a creative human?
What makes me a creative human is my inability to stay on one thing at once. So I always have to be thinking of what's next and come up with how I can do something better than I last did it, or what the next big idea is, or what we're going to design next or integrate next. I think that's off the dome my best response.
Do you feel like you're a perfectionist, or is
No.
that different than perfectionism?
I think it's different than perfectionism because at least I have the ability to sign off on things and manage expectations really well. So there's a million projects that I've done that I would love to have done better. That sometimes you just kind of got to understand, client expectation and what's realistic and crew capability and all that kind of stuff is, obviously I want to do the best job we can and execute the vision at a high level, but I'm not a perfectionist like some DPs that I know, I would say.
Jack, tell us what exactly you do. What is it that you're doing on the regular? What is your role, so people have an understanding?
Yeah, so right now, I tell people that I'm a business owner, and what we do is anything that involves multiple cameras, so live events, concerts, sports, music, that kind of stuff. That's kind of the bread and butter right now. And that started during COVID with like virtual Zoom calls and stuff, with corporate jobs and medical jobs and sales meetings and that kind of stuff. I went to SMU and I worked for the football team there for my 4 years in school, and they've been a great client of mine since. So I still do sports and some occasional work with the Dallas Cowboys. But I would say most of my business right now is multicam, and so that's design, integration, and execution for anything that involves multiple cameras.
So how did you get into this? Because I feel like everybody has different entry points, but you have been in a position to not just be a role player or a team member, but to lead teams and to hire roles just so much sooner than I think I've witnessed with a lot of the other people in this industry. So how did that happen? Where did it start?
It started back when I would really say kind of middle school. Around then I was in theater tech, and so we would produce these plays and musicals. And in 8th grade, I was the tech director for this group of students. And so that involved, I would run lighting, but then I was responsible for the crew underneath that. And at an 8th grade level, there's about 5 of them, but it was still, okay, you're in charge of audio, you're in charge of cueing, you're in charge of stage managing, you're in charge of curtains. I would make these little videos. Like, that's why I bought my first camera, was to make videos promoting these plays that we were doing just to post online. And
what was the camera?
The Canon 60D. And the reason it was that was because my dad said I should get the one with the bigger battery at Best Buy. So it was like the T3i and then the 60D, and they're arguably the same camera, just the 60D has a bigger battery. So I bought the camera due 8th grade, and then I went to a different school in 9th grade, and I sort of changed focus more into sports. I was still doing technical theater, but I was starting to take pictures of football games. And through football games, I didn't have a long lens, so I kind of shot everything except the actual game. So I took pictures of like the students in the stands and the band and the dancers and the cheerleaders and the football players like on the sideline. And that was sort of the start of like my Jack Mayo Films. Was I had a SmugMug account that all the pictures went on after the game, and that was the domain. So that was how I really started. And then I started to get other students that were interested. So shout out to Connor Smith, my first like intern, who now works for the UFL, but he was like my first other photographer that would shoot the game while I was doing something else. And so we just kind of did both. And it just like grew and grew and grew. And so that's how I ended up at SMU. Is I would make a video like once a year. Coach Dykes saw that, reached out to me on Twitter and said like, hey, do you want to come do this for us at SMU? So I wasn't even really considering going to college, but that turned out to be an incredible opportunity.
Why weren't you considering going to college?
I kind of thought I had it figured out. You know, I was taking pictures, making videos, making some money. I had been on some crew jobs, which like looking back were not very big scale, but I kind of felt like it was going to be fine. And I was not good in the classroom. So SMU was a big challenge from that standpoint, but some great advisors, you know, help you get through that and be able to get a degree and then also working full time.
What do you think the value of that is now? That's such a talking point. And there was someone at, you know, when I was at Two Circles / Let It Fly, we had a few interns on our team, and a couple times they'd bring up this idea of, let me just drop out and keep pursuing this because you're giving me opportunities and I think I can get more opportunities.
Yeah.
I'd love your opinion on if that's a valid path to take, given how much has changed in the landscape the last, 10, 15 years since I was in school.
So I have 2 degrees from SMU. I have a film degree and I have an advertising degree. I think that you can figure out a lot of kind of the way of the business without going to school. So obviously you can learn how to shoot. You can be a great editor. You could be a producer. But what I really went to school for and kind of why I was convinced and like really on board with it was that advertising side and like learning how to work in an agency and with account reps and with salespeople and media buys and all that. So I feel like that isn't easily taught on YouTube. And so being able to be client facing and being able to have long conversations and being able to create decks and sell ideas, that is probably like my X factor that I wouldn't have if I wouldn't have gone to college. Just because I experienced that and we did workshops and classes kind of dedicated to it. It was like an everyday thing. So I learned how to sell products, before it existed.
Did you start to get the sense that you were pretty good at that? And then you're like, okay, this is not only the career, but I also want to be a business owner right away. Like you didn't try to go fit in within other teams for a long time. You just kind of went into this straight up. Was that a big part of that?
It was kind of realized during COVID, because I started doing these virtual town halls and virtual meetings and helping big companies with that. And so kind of what I realized is I could have a job with an ad agency, or I could do my own thing and be helping the 20 different companies a year, kind of do the same thing, but also each has different needs and each has different technical requirements and everything that goes along with it. So what I felt really good about was the opportunity to have more of a diverse portfolio, and owning a business obviously means heavy investment. And I had to work for 2 or 3 years before I could even, buy a bunch of equipment. But now I'm at the point where kind of running, like I call them like dry hire packages of we send equipment across the country every day, and we go do a job in California, and then we come back and we send the rack out on tour, and then we go do a job in New York. Like it's a lot of management and logistics and all the business owner side, and I'm actually only on jobs 8 days a month maybe.
Yeah. How has the progression of that gone? Where, and remind me, I keep mentioning this, but how old are you again?
I'm 26.
You did this awesome intro video with, is it Eric Dickerson?
Yeah.
And SMU. And I see you, there's like a BTS, and you're like sitting kind of directing and you're kind of working with people, and like the camera is right in front of you. How do you balance the want to have that always be what you're doing versus what I think you're clearly establishing, doing a great job of, which is being a business owner? How do you kind of investigate that back and forth mentally?
Yeah, there's definitely jobs that I hold closer to my heart than others, and so that SMU Same Pony New Express was certainly one of them.
Yeah.
I had gone to school there for 4 years. Coach Lashley got hired. We started talking about this idea. We had everything, brainstormed and storyboarded, and there was donor commitment involved, and so that was kind of like my baby. There's not all jobs are like that. Some jobs are purely transactional, and I mean, we're going to advance it, we're going to get all the detail, and we're going to do an awesome job with it. But I'm not saying, okay, I really want to shoot this one, or a lot of times there's someone that's a better choice for the job. I know multiple directors of photography that can shoot 10 scenarios 10 times better than me, and so if we come across one of those, then that's a conscious decision to say, okay, we need to hire him for that, or we need to hire her for that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of knowing like the art direction and the guidance, and also, if there's specialty tools involved, if there's armed cars or techno cranes or helicopters, knowing, okay, who can we hire that's going to be the absolute best for that. That's a lot of what my brain is now. Is if we go do a 5 camera shoot in LA, I might not be on a camera. I'm watching monitors directing 5 different camera operators.
Yeah, makes sense. There's got to be that those times where you are thinking back to the Same Pony is it Same Pony New Express? I didn't screw that up, did I?
Same Pony New Express. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Got it. But that wasn't the name of it until after we shot it. I don't know if they want me to say the original name.
You can say
you can find it in behind the scenes pictures and zoom in on the slate.
For those who are really
if you're really dedicated, yeah.
Yes.
Probably somewhere.
I want to ask you about like a great work story, something that's either humorous or maybe you learned something that has always stayed with you, but I'd love to know one that really stands out.
I can mention a story from that project just because we had some curveballs thrown at us literally like the day before. Just not always does talent necessarily agree with the script, and they might want certain things changed, and that could involve a variety of things. For us on that job, it involved location, picture, car, and script. And so I had to call our AD, the assistant director, and our client, and literally like on a 3-way call, just bang, 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 sort out how we were going to accommodate all this, these requests. So that was like an incredible, from the moment I got the phone call saying what we needed to do to like, we literally shoot this in like 16 hours. It was like the best, all credit to Jared Dickey, the assistant director, and Ryan Blitzer and Grant, our producers. And we had an incredible team that, like, from my mental state of, okay, this is not the idea that I've had in my head for the last 6 months while we've been planning this, to now it's the day before and all this has to change. Those guys kept me grounded and said, okay, well, this is what we can do. We can move this here and we can make this happen. So that's trust that I had placed in them, obviously, by hiring them on the job, but also that's professionalism. That's what they do every day. So that was like incredibly assuring, just to know, okay, we hired the right people and it's all going to work out great.
What did that experience teach you that you maybe still to this day depend on from time to time? Because like you said, you had 6 months of an idea.
Right. And there's literally like a deck that has, we probably presented it in March or April to do the skyline and have the Trans Am and all that. And then that almost got thrown out the window the day before. So I was like emotionally, what the heck about it, but also knowing this is still a client job. We have to do what they need. And probably, they say like the customer's always right, the client's always right. As a creative guy and as a logistical minded guy, I thought the world was ending, but the client's always right. So it turned out fine.
Is that the advice that you would give, is that it's the client is always right? Or are there any caveats to that based on an idea, based on a situation?
One thing that we run into a lot, especially on live shows, is how it looks in the room versus how it looks on camera.
Yeah.
And so that's one of those where you've got to just take a step back and say, hey, this is a in-person event. There are people paying to attend, or the company's paying for everyone to be there. And they are going to care more about the in-the-room experience versus how it looks on a camera that someone might watch on SharePoint later.
Yeah.
So that's one of those clients always going to be right situations that I deal with almost every week. That usually involves different lighting levels and crowd light and how much backlight we have and how bright the LED wall is behind them, and all those variables. But I would say creatively as well, just like there's clients, there's agencies, there's story producers, there's representatives from the athletes, there's all these people involved, and at the end of the day, it's whose money is it? So if a client that's paying for a high profile athlete to be in their spot hires us and trusts us to execute it, they might call the day before with something and say, hey, we need to change this. And as much as that could hurt creatively, or, this might blow up our whole plan, you have to make it happen, because at the end of the day, it's their job.
How did you feel after, once it was done?
I was super happy with it because we have been able to use it for so many other things.
Yeah.
And I think if that change the day before wouldn't have been made, it wouldn't have had as long a live period.
Interesting.
So, just from a recruiting standpoint, and also from different ways that they're able to still use that footage later on with Eric, just the storyline before that probably would have been more centered and focused and not as vague. And so I think it was a good call. And shout out to Rhett and to our creative director at the time, just for saying, hey, we need to accommodate it. So.
I've been there, man. I especially managing folks on my team, I'd have things come in and it's like, hey, they want to make this change. And I'm like, well, did you ask them why? And is there like a reason for this? And without pestering them, understanding that there's just a POV that you may not understand in your position.
For sure. And a lot of times there's a million reasons that they might want something, and they've sat through meetings and they've had calls about stuff. And sometimes it's that deep, and sometimes it's literally, hey, the talent saw this and wants it different. No explanation.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to accept both.
For sure. What has really drawn you to live production? Is it the business opportunity? Was it what you recognized in COVID and being like, hey, I think we can get into the virtual game here and then kind of branch out after that? Because you can do a bit of everything, and I've seen you in different environments, but that seems to be your bread and butter. Is that right?
The bread and butter right now is definitely live production. I think that is definitely a mix of, we realized it during COVID was very lucrative and we're good at it. So we've invested heavily in the equipment for that, and team training, and just having all the tools available that we need to do those jobs. But I would say that a big piece of my heart is still with sports and athletes and shooting commercial type stuff for them. So anytime we get one of those, we go just as hard for it. We pull all the stops and we do a great job. I think something about the live shows, it's kind of a relief. Just like when you're done, it's done. And so I've said that before. Like I'm not a big editor, so I oversee edits, I post produce, but at the end of the day, like if we finish up a week-long job and then we break her off and that's it, on to the next one. So that's very that's very good from a business standpoint. Just like it doesn't linger on. We don't have to worry about billable hours. We
Yeah.
don't have post teams coming back over budget when we've already invoiced the client. Like there's all this stuff going on that happens in commercials that we avoid by doing live events. And so I think it's just kind of it's a mix of both. Like we're really good at it and we've spent a lot of money to become good at it. And just being, solely dedicated. And I think people are kind of recognizing that.
Where do you get the most satisfaction?
When SMU football wins games.
I was wondering, should I add in your job?
Yeah. I think that winning is fun, and that's like my heart is there. I say I shoot SMU football like as a passion project. It's obviously not, and they pay me well for it, but it's like, okay, just every Saturday, especially in the fall, we have a game tomorrow against Louisville. And it's like, okay, that's literally like all my brain is thinking about. I've got a massive show that ships out on Sunday, but first we got to beat Louisville. So that's where my brain is at. And like when we get to do cool stuff for the Mustangs is my favorite job that we do.
I want to get into our questions about the current landscape of things and touch on AI as we always will on this show. But first, I'd love to tap into quick advice line. So you mentioned a little bit in the way of how to deal with client changes, especially on the fly. But for anybody who is especially interested in your career path, is there a underrated piece of advice that you've gotten that you're like, hey, stick with this and it'll help you?
Yeah, one thing that I think worked for me in being able to maintain repeat clients especially is just like letting them know that you're available and reaching out to people and saying, hey, I can offer this to you. I'm not asking you for work. I'm saying, hey, we have this awesome live streaming rig. So if you need to, you're shooting a commercial, we can do a virtual video village to your client and they don't have to fly in for it. And you can have two-way comms and they can have earpieces and all that. And you can direct the client. You just don't have to fly in 10 people. And like, that's how I approach people during COVID. So I'm not here to say, can you please hire me? I have no work, which at the time I didn't, but I was saying, hey, this is what I can offer you if you ever need it. So a lot of times, I get DMs. It's like, hey bro, let's shoot. What, like, what, okay. Like, I'm probably not going to reply because, hey bro, let's shoot. Or, let me get on set sometime. Like those messages sounds like you just need work. And I understand, a lot of people do need work, but also a message that says like, hey man, I'm loving the stuff that you guys do. I'm really interested in getting into the live space. Like if you guys ever need a hand, I can pull cable or I can operate a camera or I can set up lights, that would go like 10 times further. So I think just letting people know kind of what you can offer and saying, this is what I can do. I'm willing to travel. I could take a reduced rate to get on some jobs. Because a lot of times the budgets are made a year out. And then if it's 2 weeks before, I'm like, okay, I actually could get you on here, but you're going to need to take a reduced rate because it'd just be coming out of my pocket. So that's what I would say. Just letting people know that you're available, but not kind of in a desperate way.
Yeah, man, there's such a distinction there.
Definitely.
And the way you put it, it's like, hey, I absolutely immediately, like without even thinking, because I'm thinking about so many other things that I can immediately read your message and like apply you to something or apply what you're offering to something.
If you send me a message and say, hey, I'm really solid at PowerPoint. Yeah. And I can run PowerPoint on all your jobs. You are now in my brain as, okay, if I need a PowerPoint guy, I'm thinking of you because you said that in a DM.
Correct.
So versus let me get on set or let me know if you ever need anything. Like, need anything for what? I don't know. So
as much as you want to be looking out for everybody, that's not how the world works.
Right.
You can't.
And I've got an awesome team that's like dependable and I always, kind of go-tos, but
yeah,
we're always hiring new people. And if you tell me what you do and what you can offer, you have a lot better chance of getting a call.
What is a piece of advice that you've heard a lot and you're not so sure it's effective advice. We'll say it's overrated advice. Is there anything where you're like, I don't know that you should put a lot of stock in that, even though I see it
Yeah,
everywhere?
people say gear doesn't matter, but I have bad news for them. um, it's better. I think I see it on TikTok a lot. You probably shouldn't publicize like, hey, I just got my new camera. If it's like not a really nice camera, just post at work, because I know that cameras that are cheap can get incredible images. I shoot on FX3s all the time, but I wouldn't be like, I'm the FX3 guy, because then people just think of you as the FX3 guy.
Yeah.
You should post the incredible footage that you can get out of the FX3 and let the work speak for itself. Behind the scenes, though, as a business owner, most of my deals are made off of what gear we can offer. So if this is a Venice job, if this is, on the live space, we have carbonite switchers, expensive intercoms, having the flashy stuff on the quote does give us a better chance of winning it. But
Yeah.
I would say as a small independent, just like show your work off, not the gear. A lot of times, like, I hire people that might not own a bunch of equipment, and that's fine, because, part of my business is we rent the equipment and we hire the people to go with it. And the equipment that we need changes almost every job. Like, I probably had 5 jobs this year shoot Venice, and 5 jobs shoot red, and 5 jobs shoot airy. So
Yeah.
just being able, as the business, we offer these different options. And if you're a DP and you're like, hey, I'm an Alexa Mini guy, then I put you in a category of, okay, call him if it's an airy job, versus if you just say you're a DP, then, okay, awesome, show me your work. I'm not worried about what camera you have.
Yeah. That's a great way of putting it.
Yeah.
How often are you determining gear and making recommendations versus how often are people
Every
saying
day.
this is what we want?
That's good. Kind of, it depends if they know. So
Yeah.
like a lot of corporate companies, these big multicam jobs that we do, they're in-house and their people kind of have an idea of what's hot at the moment. So we sometimes get specific requests like, hey, we need Sony FR7s, we need carbonite switchers so we can do an EDL cut. Sometimes they just have a list of tech requirements. So they'll say we need 2 long lenses, we need cameras that shoot 4K with paint control. So then kind of with each requirement they have, it kind of narrows down, okay, we need paint control, so this is going to be a Venice job, or we do need long lenses, so we have to get a 50 to 1000 on there. Or if it's lighting, even, if it's for film, we'll use different lights as if it's just for in the room. And intercoms, we try to push what we own a lot, but sometimes you need different stuff. So it sometimes is naming the equipment, but a lot of times it's kind of just parameters with, we need 6 4K cameras with long lenses and paint control.
Makes sense to me. Let's talk about it. AI and all the fun that we're having as we all
it's
learn
a lot of
and
fun.
observe and see. First, before we get big, I want to start small. How do you use it on a practical level, if at all?
I use ChatGPT for inventory, and when I get like a packing list, I'll drop it in and it adds it to like this massive list of the gear that we own with serial numbers and own value and stuff like that. I use that every day. It's like it's on the left side of my ChatGPT, just like inventory. I've tried to use it some like for website SEO, keywords, that kind of thing. It's also really great to be able to drop in, like, I'll use it for media calculations. It does a pretty good job at that. I'm just thinking ChatGPT here, so let me think if there's any like other things that I use. It's previs. That's a big one. So OpenAI has a great engine where we can basically drop a photo, say add 10 lights behind them, add spotlight effects, add a blue halo, add, you just go. And then it creates these versions of, it's not replacing a storyboard, but it helps us on the front end to say, this is what your final product could look like. It's a great option for prevising jobs. And
So
so,
you're not changing what's actually in the image. You're changing how it looks based on the gear that you are suggesting they use.
yeah, sometimes we did like an SMU recruiting video back in May. And so it started with just have a football player standing on turf in a jersey that looks like this. And so we drop in the SMU uniform. And then we say, put 6 lights in a row behind him, make them blue. Okay, it does it. And we say, do a spotlight from the top, make it orange, and it puts it in. So 5 or 6 prompts down, you have a very realistic, like, this is what the job's actually going to look like. And so you can show that to our coaches or client or whoever and say, hey, are you cool if it looks like this? Because this is what it's going to look like. And they think it's dope, or they say, oh, change this or whatever. It just gives us a good sense of what it's going to be. And there's not a lot of tools out there, especially for film, because in the live space, there's, $20,000 a day previs suites that you can get to design that kind of stuff. But this, I literally did like over lunch somewhere just on a laptop. Hey, this, and it's making us the images that sign off on the job.
And so, this is within ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Because I know there's, we're recording this November 21st. So Nana Banana Pro just came out, and there's all these people freaking out over. Now there's this new thing from Google that's this incredible image generator.
Right. The image generation in chat is pretty good. I haven't messed around with much else just because we pay for chat for the company. So
that's a big question, by the way, is for everybody, is like, how do I really take something seriously in a testing environment when I have to pay for it? And how many things can I afford to pay for to test? How do you gauge that question?
We pay for chat, and I get Grok also from Twitter Premium or X Premium. But that's the only 2 that we pay for right now. I would have to add it on to Google to get Gemini and those options. But right now the team is happy with having chat's the big one.
Do you feel like it's smart to just bet on the big horses in this race to continue to eat up all the features that some of these smaller startups might be releasing, and they might be very exciting?
Yeah. It depends on the industry, because almost every single one of these big corporate jobs that I go do, every single week they're talking about their AI option. Yeah. And so a lot of times it's built on Gemini, or it's built on OpenAI, or it's built on one of the smaller ones, but they are optimizing it basically to run on their website, on their dashboards, on their backends, if it's, user seen or not, just to accomplish exactly what they need to in an environment that's already familiar to their users. So if you've got 100 salespeople on a portal, adding a box in the corner that's AI powered, but being able to take, for example, like a purchase order from a different company, it might be in a different language and not in the format you're used to drop it in, and then it puts the purchase order in your standard format. Like, I saw that demo 2 days ago. So that's one of those that companies are using one of the AI providers basically to optimize it and put it into their portals to make their employees more productive.
When were you like, we have to do this? When did you have any resistance initially?
I still do have resistance for using it to create final client product. I don't do it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever will, or if there would ever be like a real proper time to. I've always kind of said, like, my staple is we don't really use VFX. So like in 2018, when we covered the SMU football field with Quasar tubes, we had 2 semis full of extension cords because I didn't want to fake any of it. Yeah. So we covered every single line on the field. None of it was fake. We could have done just 4 of the lines and then, hire a decent VFX guy, and then they do the rest of the field. But a lot of what I've sold people, and kind of people know me as, like, if I'm doing it, it's practical. So
how does that hold up?
10 instances.
It's
getting tougher.
About to say,
people say, why don't you just AI it? So I have to just be like, well, I like to do it for real.
Yeah. Well, I think we can all feel deep down why that matters, but how do you articulate it? What's a way to make someone else feel that they should invest in it too? And you could still be working on it, because this is all moving so freaking fast, man.
Luckily, luckily it doesn't happen a ton.
Yeah.
You know, I'm able to show our previous work and show this is what we're able to do. This is what our team can achieve. We can hire these people. You give us this investment and we can do this. Sometimes I like the bragging rights, quite frankly. You know, hey, we did this for real. We shut down the interstate or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of generative tools right now that can take a prompt and maybe a reference picture and turn it into a scene, and then, okay, you just didn't have to shut down the interstate. But quite frankly, some people like to be able to say, yeah, we shut down the interstate for this. So
it's part of marketing now.
There's still a cool factor, and part of what I'm seeing is, like, at the end of movies, they're putting no generative AI was used. So that's a good sign for us, at least at the moment, because that means that as long as Hollywood's doing that, then we don't have to be expected really to provide it. So it's saving us money at the moment.
Yeah. I was thinking back to F1, the movie with Brad Pitt, because that movie is marketed because, and same with a lot of the old Mission Impossible movies, or I guess the newer ones, I should say, is all of the marketing is, look
Practical
how
stunts.
we managed to do these massive practical stunts.
Yep.
And you may not really care to see the movie with the same fervor unless you know that. And
Right.
that, Jack, I'm curious for your feelings here. That gets at this larger question around the future of AI and creative, which is, do people care where the creative comes from and that it comes from a human being? There's a quote that Rick Rubin dropped that I've seen circulating that I like a lot. And the quote is, I'm interested in the artists I'm interested in because they have a POV. They have a point of view. And if I want to then investigate that point of view, I can do that. And now I am just further endeared to that artist. Right. How does that discussion enter your brain, and where are you on it?
I'm split, because a lot of our best work, our name isn't on.
Yeah.
So if my name's not on it, why do I care? But I care because it's what I do and it's what I grew up doing. So it's just a me thing, really. You know, a client could call us and say, we need all this crazy generative AI, and I'll probably turn it down, because what I like to spend my time with is practical stuff. And since I was, 12 years old, whenever it came out and Tom Cruise is on the side of the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, and that's a practical shot, like, that's my favorite movie. So there's a reason, like, I remember that, and obviously all the Mission Impossibles with him are legit, but just being able to say, like, we did that for real. And with SMU, we shut down the road and we did this, and with Mahomes, we actually shot that. Like, there's all these cool examples of, like, we could have done VFX, or we could have now used AI, but we didn't, because we wanted to do it for real.
Do you feel like you are sensing more and more in discussions that is a differentiator for you, that you keep bringing up more or putting more emphasis on? Or has it always been that way?
It's kind of a tricky one, because I have been getting pushback with people wanting to pay for, like, pre-production, because they'll say, well, we can just AI it.
Right.
And the use case that I gave you, is kind of borderline doing that, where I'm prevising ideas and getting them signed off on in AI. But then I said it's not meant to replace storyboards, because that would just be incredibly tedious. And making, 75 frames for a commercial in AI all match. I mean, I've not seen anything capable of doing that. So,
well, there's the Coca-Cola ad that came out, and I'm like, they put how many hours into that? Did it save them any money at the end of the day?
Right. And we can have a commercial drawn in one day, and we pay a guy, his rate to do that. And that's completely fine. That's the old school way of doing it, and that's what we're used to doing. So it's kind of a unique spot, because I can even show our storyboard artists the AI drawings that I make, but that's really just me brainstorming.
Yeah.
I like to maybe, if I were to draw the line, I'll say the stuff that the client's paying for is real, and maybe my brainstorming is AI.
I've definitely tried to test as much as I can. Where I felt it being the most effective is in those previs phases, but there's a cutoff, because depending on the the importance of the project, the investment. You need to see, as you said, like to a T, a very specific look at what you're going to get, and
Right.
all the things that go into that you just, I suppose you could prompt for, but like you said, you probably spend more time in the end. So,
Right.
um,
The other thing is, at a certain scale, say we're doing a national spot, we've budgeted storyboarding. If I've budgeted storyboarding, am I going to pay myself to spend the time on AI and do it? Or am I hiring an AI storyboard person? But then what's the point?
right.
So if they're not paying for storyboarding, why would I spend my time on AI doing it if it's not to win the job? If we've been
Yeah.
awarded, then it's in the budget. So that's my take.
How do you feel about it long term? How do you even begin to think about it long term?
Yeah, it's getting better every day. I've seen some crazy stuff on Instagram of like people that spend all day working on it and coming up with prompts and making different art, and there's stuff that looks like a real commercial, but then at the end of the day, it's like, okay, if you have a brand or if you have a client that's very specific, at least if it's a $50 million job, maybe, but if it's a sub-mil shoot, there's not a lot of wiggle room, and being able to say we're going to spend all this money on AI storyboarding or make the whole thing in AI, then it's literally a couple people at computers and there's no shoot happens. So it might get to that point. I don't think I'll do it. I'll just rent equipment out to live shows because I don't think you can AI a sales meeting.
That's what I was going to ask about is do you feel like you're able to proof yourself in some ways? Not just around hoping for others' opinions to mirror what I think yours, in my opinion, is, that we should value certain things,
Yeah.
and not let them go. But do you feel like you're able to proof yourself in some ways?
We've proofed ourselves. We did it during COVID, and it wasn't because of the rise of AI, but I guess it's protecting here too, is, creating an awesome in-person experience for people that we can say, we did this job and we did this show and we put on this event, and being able to still have all the elements that we have on a film set. We have sound, video, and lighting and story producers and stage managers and all that. But getting good at that probably helped a lot. And it's certainly at the point where I don't take as much commercial work because we have live shows during that time. And if more commercial stuff goes away, I shouldn't say more. I don't know that any commercial stuff's really going away yet. But
Yeah.
if that were to happen, we would just dive in more with live shows, I think, which are back now from COVID, really 100%.
I see so many things shifting rather than going away, which I know people probably reject that because they say, well, that's a false sense of comfort. But I really do think there's a long change. Tools are evolving rapidly, but how ecosystems that are so intricate evolve and adapt to understanding
ecosystems and processes and
slow
procurement and different ways that we have a meeting, like find the things that send you an email after your Zoom call saying, here's what you talked about. That's great. No problem with it.
Yeah.
But if there's something taking away the reason for the meeting, then that's a problem.
Couple more, man. I appreciate your time big time.
Yeah,
It's been an awesome discussion. Final thoughts on the AI discussion. Is there a way that you haven't talked about yet that it can be good? Is there a positive scenario down the line where we say, okay, I'm glad this has come about? Not that we had any say in this as normal lay people, but
Right.
yeah, can it get there? And if it can, what are some of the ways that you and your unique POV could maybe see it getting to a good place and say, well, this is a positive?
Yeah, I'm trying to think, the AI tools that are in softwares that we use every day are generally getting better. So, for example, Adobe's offerings to transcribe for subtitles, for like match scene detection, for different like Lightroom just came out with, it'll sort, these are the 30 photos that you took right here. So those tools getting better are a positive, because that helps what I'm doing go faster, which means I can be more productive, which I'm fine with. I think if they were to get to the point where this AI edits all your pictures for you, then that's too far, because I'm still deciding how I want it to look at. I've got my monitor I know I'm comfortable with. I have a way I want it to look. If I'm giving it prompts, or if I just drop in 100 CR3 files and then it outputs 12 of them and it's like, here you go. I'm like, what was the point of, being a photographer at that point?
Isn't everything going to look the same?
Who knows?
To some extent, if you have AI editing, AI is going to put what is most optimal. But sometimes
and you can tell the best, it.
Yeah, but I was going to say real quick, sometimes the best things that happen is it's not the optimal creative choice, and then over time it becomes that.
Right, or it's an accident, or you like the way it looks, or when we're on real sets, we walk into a room, the first thing we do is turn all the lights off. And then sometimes you're like, oh, this looks amazing. And so as long as your camera's fine to shoot it, you just start adding what you actually need. You don't need to walk into a fully lit, living room.
Yeah.
Rarely are you going to walk into a fully lit living room and say, this is perfect, let's shoot.
Yeah.
So with AI doing it, I feel like it might be kind of like walking into a fully lit living room and not, start from scratch, build it, say, okay, this is perfect. That's probably a decent comparison. And I would also say, if it's to a point where I was just thinking of, I took photos at an event like last week, and on the editing process of it, the AI features that kept popping up, and it's like, some of them are really bad still.
Yeah.
So they need so much input that it's almost better to be physically doing the sliders and keyboard shortcuts, however you edit, and not just giving it prompts saying, change this, fix this, make that darker. There's a point where it's like, are you going to be tired of giving it prompts and you just want to be,
man,
it's like the cable cutter people.
Yes.
Oh yes, we got rid of DirecTV, but now we have YouTube TV and Hulu and Tubi and all these. So it's like, are we going to go up the AI mountain and then realize it's not that great and then go back down? I don't know. Maybe.
I think if you were to look at the mountain like you look at going skiing, and there are different trails, I think there are some trails that we will go up the mountain and come down and be like, that's a bad trail. Like,
yeah.
This is not something we want to keep doing. And there will have to be some financial use cases that support that.
But no matter what, maybe you always have to ride the ski lift to get up.
Right.
So maybe
we're gonna dive into this one.
Well, it's like you can't avoid it, but you're gonna go down the trail that might take more work. But you know, at the end of the day, you both get to the bottom. But
is an avalanche a data breach in this analogy? I was trying to further
an avalanche, or like having to get ski patrolled out of there, maybe.
Ski patrol going on strike.
Like a power outage would be pretty terrible if you depend on data centers. Yeah.
I think that's actually a great way of looking at it. And if there is a place of optimism for me, it is that at some point, after some probably tough moments, we will get back to realizing with more clarity why specific elements that are human-led specifically are so valuable, and understand them better, and those actually might become even more important in the long run.
I've said this before on maybe every podcast I've ever done, but people that hire my company call me, and they call Jack Mayo for Jack Mayo Films. Now, most people know now at this point that, you know, it'll maybe become to where I'm not physically on site, but they call me for me, and they trust how I'm going to orchestrate it and how I'm going to produce it and how I'm, you know, the crew that I rely on. If I trust them, they can trust them. So you're not going and doing a shoot saying, oh yeah, I can't wait to Gemini this, I can't wait to open AI this. It's okay. We're calling a producer that we trust, and then depending on what he wants to do with it, that's fine. So if we're gonna use AI, as long as legal and everyone's compliant, sure, we could use it. But at the end of the day, it's clients are calling producers saying we want this to get created.
Trust and relationships, man, it goes a long way. We're at the end of 2025, and I know a few clients who are larger, and they mandate no AI in this. You can't do it, and it's probably for legal reasons, to be fair. But
there's a lot of legal, and no one really knows who owns it. And
yes,
there's a environmental concern I hear about all the time with data center and water and cooling and power and a million other reasons. But that's a big reason for restrictions within a corporate level. So that's fine, but that's just kind of part of it.
Yeah.
At this point,
any other thoughts?
It does take an environmental toll.
Yeah.
And like, if you watch your electric bill, it's like if you're running anything that's AI consumption, it's just going and going and going 100% of the time, which is why they're in massive data centers.
Any parting thoughts on the technology front, my friend?
I don't think so. I would just say, like, I love doing it for real and not always by the book, but, generally, like, obviously a way that's safe and a way that is fun and a way that's cool, because at the end of the day, people see that when it gets to the other side of the screen. And so if I'm able to shoot something practical and execute that at a high level, you see it when it comes through and it's like, wow, that looks awesome. So I'm glad at the moment that there's companies not saying that they can use AI and generative and whatever. And I'm sure there's going to be more restrictions put in place, but I'm sure some will also be lifted. So it'll just be interesting to see where it all goes.
For sure. And like you said, it's a marketing tool. It's especially in this moment in time when so many people have the same ick when it comes to AI, whether it's environmental reasons, whether it's because they fear displacement, whatever it is, being able to proactively say not AI, in fact, freaking awesome for this other reason, it just gets more eyeballs on what you're doing. So I keep calling 2026 the year of BTS videos, because I just think they're going to come out more and more and more to help showcase and prove that.
I'm all for it. Yeah.
Jack, before we go, we always try to end on a positive note by talking about people. Tell me a couple of creators out there who you're really into right now, whether they are maybe one who's more well-known, established, you just love their stuff, and someone who is emerging and maybe could use some gassing up.
I mean, I love the people that I hire on every job.
Yeah,
like,
shout them out.
They're my favorite creatives in the world. So that's why I hire them. And Elisha Bittok, he does an awesome job producing with me. Thomas Blanks is an amazing director of photography. So like, if I'm not shooting it, he is basically. My brother James has gotten really into lighting, and he's becoming an awesome gaffer, and he's able to do stuff one-man band or to be, leading a 10-man G&E team. So I would definitely give those guys shout out, because that's who I depend on. And, if it wasn't for those guys, nothing I do would matter. So I would say, if it's people I don't work with, I really like. There's a group called Contrast Films. And Chase Smith. I know Chase, but I haven't worked with them, and they do like incredible concert films. Funicular Goats is another one that does big, Taylor Swift tour and the biggest shows out there. So if we could ever cross paths, that would be a big one for me. And maybe creatively, I've always loved Roger Deakins as a DP. And
legend.
The work that he did on Skyfall, I always say this joke. It's like, people might call and say, hey, we need to shoot this on a Alexa LF. I'll say, oh, so you think you're making a better movie than Skyfall? Because he just shot that on a normal Alexa. So like if you need a better camera than a normal Alexa, I hate it for you because you're not making a better movie than Skyfall.
And this is coming from someone who says gear matters, but
Yeah,
it's the other gear. It's the other gear.
I mean, it does all matter, but I just think it's funny when people are like, oh, we have to have the camera that came out a month ago. I'm like, what if it wouldn't have? Like really? A couple of years ago, people were like, we have to have Venice 2. I'm like, that camera's been out for 3 months. So what would you do if it didn't exist?
Everything before it was crap.
Yeah.
What do you want to do long term, man? Are you wanting to make movies at some point, or do those aspirations not creep into your head?
Not at the moment. I mean, those I've never really been like narrative focused. I like original commercial ideas. I like live jobs. I like being able to say, like, maybe someone approaches me and says, hey, this is what we need to do, and then I can go down from even just like one sentence to like 25 things, and this is how we're going to do it. I've never had like, a lot of filmmakers, they have passion projects, and I don't think I've ever had a desire for a passion project. So that's, there's no idea in my head.
What do you think that means?
I'm just not a writer. I'm like, I don't need to write a script. It's fine.
You can't have a passion project that's not coming from a script.
My passion project would be like organizing Pelican cases.
Hell yeah.
It would be, I mean, my passion project is like organizing drives, Pelican cases, credit card statements. Like that's what I'm doing day to day. If we're on set, we're having fun, but the rest of being a business owner is the nitty gritty.
One of the things I love about the potential for this show, if anyone ever listens, if we get more than like 5 people, is there is not one way to really define creativity. There's so many things that can branch off of it or be an input into what the definition is for some person. So some people listening, Jack, might be like, wow, you're so logistically like minded in ways I'm not. And other people might be like, dude, yes, 100%. So I love that about this.
I hope that, maybe someday it'd be nice to have an idea for a passion project, because I think generally they always turn out really good. And I've helped friends that have them before. And, there's something about that old school, like, it feels like backyard filmmaking. If you're on a lower budget shoot and, the guy that wrote it's the cameraman and the director and he's going to edit it, like, that's fun. So that's not me, but that's a lot of fun. And that's some of the best experience that you can get if you're up and coming, is like learn on passion project shoots, because you might learn a little bit of everything. I promise, if you're working on a passion project, it's not going to be, if you're the AC, you're not only going to touch a camera, you'll touch a light at some point.
And thus the experience begins. Final question for you. Just thoughts on on where we are with, especially for those who are, as you began, kind of going solo in this industry, this space, which I know has many definitions, but where are we at? Is it a good time? Is it a tough time? How would you define this moment that we're in for solo creative people?
I think that, and I was just talking to a student yesterday at LSU, and so I'll tell you all the same thing I told him. It was like, right now there's so much competition for full-time jobs that full-time jobs, the issue is, at the college level, there's only a couple positions open. With an in-house agency, there might be more positions open, but then your role might not be as specialized, or you might get put on an account that you don't necessarily care about, which is what I warn people of. It's like, if you want to go work at one of the big name ad agencies, that's awesome. But what happens when you get put on an account that you like have zero interest in? If you're wanting to be solo, you need to decide if you're going to be a one-man band, diverse, I can do anything. At that point, you're a videographer or a photographer. Or if you're going to be specialized and say, hey, this is something I gaffed. This is something I Steadicam operated on. This is a graphic I made. This is a show that I tech managed for, and I did all the infrastructure. Like, those are jobs that we hire individually all the time. So if you kind of need to decide, and those both have different clienteles. For us, we're hiring specialized people that are, okay, you're a gaffer, you're a behind the scenes photographer, you're a Steadicam op. and we're not hiring the generic, I can shoot anything people.
Yeah.
So just decide probably what path you want to go down, and then once you do, it's just about making connections and meeting people, and like I said earlier, just letting people know what you can offer from there.
Jack, you're the man. Jack Mayo, our guest on Creative Human today. Thanks so much for listening.
Thanks,
Jack.
Tom.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for coming on. I don't have a really great exit for this yet, so we're just going to go ahead and close it off right here. Thanks for listening.
All good.